go. What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. We're on a familiar road. I have not driven this road in so long, but we have the perfect car for it here today. We're here with Kevin, and this is his 2013 Scion FRS. It's a car I haven't driven in so long, not the original version at least. So welcome to the channel.
Thanks, man. Prepare to be blown away by my mostly stock FRS.
Mostly stock FRS, but you've had it since new.
Yeah, I've had it for 8.5 years, July 2013.
That's pretty amazing. So I think more than just like how the car drives is, I think a lot of the viewers would be interested in just hearing your experience with the car, because this is a really popular, canyon carver or daily driver, like a track car, like an all-you-can-do-it sort of budget-oriented sports car.
I'm a self-proclaimed car enthusiast. I love cars. I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
Always watching content, always trying to drive other cars. But for 8.5 years, I've been pretty happy with this.
First things first, let's rip on it for a few minutes and remind ourselves why this is actually a really, really fun driving machine.
So yesterday I was at Thunderhill, did 5 miles. It was, I think, like 8 sessions. It was a really long track day. A lot of abuse on my brake pads. So one of them got stuck, got worn down to metal, so I had to replace them with what I found at AutoZone. Or actually, it was O'Reilly's, and I actually did some sessions on these pads.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so, yeah, just watch out for the brakes. It's
I'm gonna take it easy into corners, but we'll focus on getting that perfect exit. Brakes work.
Damn, bro, you really book it. You're like Takumi. I also have really old and slippery RE71Rs that have been heat cycled at a few track days.
Okay.
So normally I have Apex Arc 8s with 245 Michelin Pilot Super Sports, or no, Michelin Pilot 4Ss.
I mean, honestly, for a road like this, the less grip, the better, because you really feel the car move around.
Right. Things feel so much faster when you're passenger.
Oh, for sure.
Even when I ride passenger on the track, and I'm in like a car that is comparable to this, like a Miata, I'm like, holy shit.
It feels fast, yeah.
It feels so much faster. Like when you first started booking, I was like, fuck, I'm gonna die today.
So have you had any mechanical issues with the engine? I'm curious.
When the valve spring recall was first announced, I mean, I took it in for them to do the valve spring recall, and then they didn't do it properly. I had to take it back in. But like, there has been no issue other than that.
8 years you've had it? 9 years?
8.5.
8.5 years and 74,000 miles. So what's been your experience on track with this thing so far? Like, is it pretty easy to drive? Is it your first track car?
This is my first track car. The reason I got this car was, of course, Initial D, huge.
Of course.
Had to get mine in white. So I wanted to improve my driving skill. Like, that's driving enjoyment. One of the main reasons I'm into cars is because of the driving enjoyment. So I started with autocross, and that's what taught me car basics.
Yeah, car control.
Yeah. I only started tracking like 2 years ago. I would say I'm fairly new to it. I'm not that experienced, but it's been a blast on track. Like, I'm able to... One thing I learned that you guys should definitely not do is, the pedal dance? Like, you can completely...
Pedal dance?
There's a way to completely disable traction control, 100%.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, like, you have to, like, start the car, engine has to be warm, handbrake 3 times, all these things. And I did that on my first track day because that's what you do at autocross. You want to... You don't want any nannies at autocross.
Right.
But I had pretty shitty tires at the time, and I did that my first time at Laguna Seca. And like it was during COVID actually. So my coach in front of me was telling me like, hey, what's wrong with your car? Like, you're sliding all over the place. I had shitty tires. And I was sliding a lot. I was catching it because of autocross teaching me those car control basics. I had a close call going down the corkscrew where I almost like ate shit. So to me, it's a really fun car to drive at the limit because you can play around with it and dance.
Yeah. In my latest podcast that I just released, me and my friend Matt, my co-host, we were saying for $30,000, if you could buy 2 cars, right? One for daily, one for track, like what's the best combo? Because nowadays these are like $20K. in the used market.
They've held their value. Well, since COVID, they've bumped up.
But I remember back in the day, like pre-COVID, you could find them, or like maybe at the start of COVID, you could find them like for 12 or 13.
Oh, even less than that, yeah.
Yeah, but even now, I think in the 18 to 20 range for a clean one, it's still one of the best driver's cars you can get for that price if you're focused on like reliability. Like, yes, you could pick up probably like a first gen Cayman for that money, but you're never going to be able to like push it without that little feeling in the back of your head like, oh, if I blow the motor, there goes 20K.
Well, people have a lot of issues with the 2013. If you go online, people are like, oh, avoid the 2013 like the plague. I haven't had any issues. Maybe I just got lucky. The other thing too is this is a practical single vehicle. This is my only car.
Yeah.
So what I hear a lot too is if people want two vehicles, like get a Miata or get a S2000, a little bit more focused, much less practical than this because these seats fold down.
You can fit a full set of wheels in here, right?
Wheels. I fit my bicycle in there.
Yeah.
Like you can put a lot of shit.
All right. Now the road's cleared up. Let's rip it. Just go full throttle everywhere in this thing. It's hilarious. Do you have coilovers on this?
Nope, stock suspension.
Okay, I was gonna say it feels pretty stock.
But I got JDL 421 catless headers, a tune, and a catback exhaust. Oh yeah, oil cooler was actually the first mod I did for track days.
So how much power did you get? Did you dyno it after the tune and the headers? Okay.
They say it's normally like 20 to 25.
Really?
Sounds about right.
I was gonna say this actually pulls harder than I remember the original FRS pulling.
These are equal length, so it helps with track day top end. Whereas if you get the unequal length, it helps with the torque dip. I mean, the torque dip is improved with the tune and the headers, but not as much as if I had gone unequal length.
I see. So that's why we don't. I didn't notice you had headers based on the sound because it doesn't have that burble.
Right.
I think with the RE71Rs, it's actually not that easy to get this thing to step out, even if I'm very aggressive with the throttle. This thing just has so much grip. Now, one thing I love about the FRS, even in stock form, is the suspension. On this road, this suspension's way more compliant than my Bilstein coilovers in my 911. This suspension communicates what the car is doing very well. Like, you can feel everything through the seat. The steering rack is very, even though it's electric
I love the steering rack.
Yeah, tons of feedback.
It reminds me of my old E36. Like, that was hydraulic, beautiful steering.
Yeah.
It's not as good as the E36, but like, steering feel to me is so important in driver enjoyment.
Because you're only interfacing with really just the steering wheel, the shifter, and the pedals, right?
Yeah.
So the more feedback you get from those three items, the more engaged you're going to feel. And this is definitely hands down, one of the best electric power steering racks on the market even today, even though this is like an 8-year-old car now. Makes some not so nice noises right around 5,000. Feels so confident pushing this car through the corners. It's such an easy car to drive. The natural balance.
Whoa, there we go.
I mean, that's what this car's all about, right? Just getting the tail end to just wag a little bit coming out of every corner, but you're not going that fast is the thing. It might feel different from the passenger seat, but from the driver's seat.
When I drive this car, I'm like, fuck, this thing, like, go faster. And then the passenger, like, holy shit, we're gonna die.
I like that with the VSC and sport mode, it gives you that little bit of slip. Like, in most other modern cars I've driven that are rear-wheel drive, where you have like a sport mode to the traction stability control, it'll let you slip, but the moment you start slipping, it like brings it back in really abruptly. And so it makes it hard to drive the car smooth. But this one, actually, I feel like it's a little bit more progressive when it brings you back in. I could honestly drive this car up and down this road all day. It's dangerous. In some ways, I enjoy it more than an S2000, dare I say, just because, like, yeah, the engine and the gearbox not nearly as good, but it's easier to push this car hard. In an S2000, when you're on the edge of grip, you feel like at any moment it could kind of snap, and like it's harder to catch. In this car, it's just it's so progressive. Like you could practically drive it with one hand, oversteer it with one hand, and it's not a car that makes you really sweat, if I'm being honest.
It's a beautiful learning tool, and I think for a lot of us, it just comes down to being a better driver.
Yeah.
And if you are a novice, this is such a good car to learn on.
Agreed.
Like my friend, I was thinking about getting a Cayman, a 981, when I first started tracking. And my buddy, he's like, dude, forget a Cayman. You have a beautiful car for track days. I'm like, yeah, but it's kind of slow, you know. And then that's, eventually I got the headers and tune and stuff. It still is slow, but what he was pointing to is a lot of people get a really nice, fast, fancy car, and they go on the track, and they use that as a crutch.
Yeah.
And then they don't actually progress as drivers. And like, it was embarrassing that I was like, why was I driving the same speed as a 981 GT4 yesterday?
Right.
Like, why did I overtake a GT4? That's obnoxious. Like, that guy, would probably be better suited in a Miata or a FRS, learn his, improve his skill, and then upgrade to a more capable car.
Yes. I think you summed it up perfectly. And every single time I've reviewed one of these cars, FRS BRZ, that's the conclusion that I always end up with, is that this car, it might not be that fast. As a learning tool to learn how to drive a rear-wheel drive car, it is bar none the best car that anyone's ever been able to buy in the past 20 years for less than $30,000.
What about Miata?
I think it's a better learning tool than the Miata. I think the Miata is fun in its own way. It might have quicker lap times. Now that, with the ND2 Miata, you're not only 500 pounds lighter, you're also faster in a straight line. But even then, that car doesn't feel as natural to me as this one. Something about this, I think it's like the longer wheelbase. It just feels like it's set up almost like to be a drift car, like a very mild drift car. Whereas a Miata just wants to grip, and when you do lose grip, it's a little bit, it's kind of like the S2000, where it's a little bit more twitchy.
There are some things I don't like about the car. The engine noise being an obvious one.
Yeah.
Another thing is, I'm curious your thoughts on the road noise, because when I drive between Las Vegas and the Bay Area often, and it gets old pretty fast.
I don't think I've ever driven a car that's 2,700 pounds that doesn't have a lot of road noise. I think it's just par for the course for a car that's lightweight. But this always makes me wonder, like, what if they just put in the turbo FA20, like from the WRX? I think it would still maintain the great chassis balance and the ease at which you can push the car to its limit and beyond. But at the same time, you'd have like an extra 60 horsepower to play with when you really want that extra straight line performance. And I think it's a shame that Subaru and Toyota still haven't come out with a true, higher powered version of a car. I know the new GR86 is out now, and with 228 horsepower. I'm excited
I may
for
get rid
it
of this and get that.
I mean, that wouldn't be a bad idea. And I will reserve final judgment until obviously I've driven that car. But I can't help but think that if they really just made like a 260 to 300 horsepower version, it would just be such a knockout car. Like, let's say for 40 grand, I would take that in theory over like a Supra.
I hear the counterpoint being you want linear throttle on a car like this.
True.
And by doing the turbo, you're going to lose that. You're going to have some amount of lag.
That's very true, yeah. Aftermarket supercharger fixes that. I've driven a couple supercharged FRS BRZs, and those are really good, but superchargers just aren't very efficient nowadays. It would greatly hurt the fuel economy of something like this, I think.
Yeah, my fuel economy already with the tune and headers and stuff is not that great.
Like mid-20s?
I'd say low. I drive to beat on this car, so low 20s.
Okay.
But I also drive like an idiot. Every time I drive this car, I'm getting it sideways.
I mean, it's kind of hard not to when it's so easy. Like, it just eggs you on. For that reason, it's one of my all-time favorite, like, budget sports cars. Thanks, Kevin, for letting me drive your FRS. Okay, you were saying about the mods, just in case the viewers are...
Yeah, so JDL 421 catless headers, Ecutech tune, Jackson Racing oil cooler, Touring 8.6 CSG exhaust catback.
It sounds almost like stock.
They advertise this as being like you're not gonna exceed the Laguna Seca 90 decibel.
Oh, okay.
So that's why. I mean, I'm an old man at heart. I complain about road noise. So I was like, give me a quiet exhaust.
All right. Well, cool. This has been a fun experience. Let me know what you guys think about the FRS BRZ. Do you think in today's market, in what is it, October 2021, think they're going for around 20 grand now? These early ones in good condition. Do you think it's still worth it? Or do you think it's worth it, for example, to pay 5-10K more for an S2000? Love to hear your thoughts. See you guys next time.